Broken World Entertainment, and I thought I would just give my general thoughts and my feelings towards House of the Dragon now that season 1 has ended. I didn't review any episodes because I wasn't sure whether I was really going to stick with it, to be honest. But I did, and it's definitely not perfect, but it works. We finally had decent entertainment. Entertainment where lines of dialogue didn't even have to be spoken and you could just feel the raw emotion in a scene. So it's set, I believe they said 175 years before Game of Thrones. Which makes no sense because it was meant to be a few thousand years, if not just 1,000 years before. But they've chalked it up to 175 years. And it revolves around our King King Verses, who is desperate to have a son. He's got a daughter, and he's only ever produced, well, his wife has only ever produced a daughter, and she died giving birth to their next child, which was a son. And the baby died too. So he done the unthinkable, and he announced his daughter, Princess Rhaenyra, to be crowned queen. So she was meant to get the rule, but his hand, Otto Hightower, maneuvered his daughter Alicent, who was best friends with Rhaenyra, into wooing, if you like, the king, and he ended up choosing to marry her. She produced heirs for him, which were male, but he still retained that Rhaenyra was to take the throne. His brother Daemon Targaryen is a complicated character. He's very against rules and stuff at the best of times. Seems to quite enjoy war. And he wanted the throne at one stage, but he kind of given up. He kind of gets shunned with everything. And there's a lot of people I know vying for Princess, what's her name? I have to look up. Rhaenyra's. She was the queen that never was. So it all goes through the years. It skips ahead a lot in the series. Rhaenyra pretty much has a falling out with Alicent because she marries her father, becomes Queen Regent. Princess Rhaenyra gets wed to another Valyrian blood, who's Corlys, his son, but the son is actually gay, so she has bastards. They're not the legitimate bloodline of Valyrian blood. Not that anyone questions it, even though her husband is black, the kids are white. But and Alicent has a bunch of kids for the king, and they're all male. You have Aemond, and what is the eldest son's name? Why can't I think of the son's name? Ooh, I can't remember. Oh, Aegon. So tensions really build. Yes, there's tons of dragons. Not in every episode, but quite a few. So there's tensions building, and the story is basically going to be that when the king passes, Rhaenyra is going to be the queen. Everybody is pretty much not accepting that because they are saying it's never been done. You can't have a woman sit on the throne. Alicent, with her father Otto, very much manipulating the situation, is telling her, no, Aegon must sit the throne. So it ends up coming to the point where now everything's older. Rhaenyra's second son got into a fight with Aemond and took out his eye. So he's hell bent on revenge over that for the next 10 years or something. And the real tensions kind of build between the bloodlines. There's Rhaenyra knowing that they're not going to accept her as queen, but her sons should take the place because, according to her, they're the legitimate bloodline to take over the crown. While Alicent is very much knowing that her sons must take the thing. But her sons are pretty much two degenerates. Now, she's a few sons, but them two, Aegon and Aemond, they're just degenerates. Especially Aegon. Aegon's just a booze horn dog of a guy who just doesn't care. Whereas Rhaenyra's sons very much pride themselves on following the rules and traditions. So they realise very quickly that they're never going to accept Rhaenyra's children, which means that when the king eventually passes away, a move will immediately be made to kill her children. So they leave Kingsland, they go to Dragonstone. I think it's Dragonstone. And all this kind of craziness happens. So in the end, Rhaenyra she marries Daemon, who's her uncle, by the way. They get married. She has a child with him, but it dies during childbirth. It's premature and it seems to be stillborn. It seems to also have a bit of dragon scale, possibly. Its head is a bit deformed. She then sends her two sons to make sure that they still have allies. So she sends her oldest son up north to Starks and someone else. I can't remember who the other one is. Well, she sends Luke down to see if the Baratheons were still on their side. They want to have allegiance guaranteed, basically, because they had already said yes to their allegiance to Viserys about when he goes, the daughter is going to be queen. Do they accept that? And they all said yes. So she sends Luke down there. Luke flies down on Arax, or Irax. I believe it's Arax, his dragon, who's tiny. It's still a baby dragon, basically. He arrives, and as he's walking in, you hear a growl, and he turns around and he shits his pants because there is the largest dragon that's alive, Vhagar, who is gigantic. This thing is that big, who, by the way, Aemond claimed as his own. The dragon's previous rider was Daemon's wife, who was a Valyrian. But she wasn't going to survive childbirth, so she got the dragon to kill her. Because it's quick and painless, apparently. So you as the audience member straight away go, oh, Aemond must be here. But Luke doesn't have that. He's just shitting his pants because of Vhagar, the size of Vhagar. And talk about, they really nail how to show you the scale of something. Because Vhagar is on the outer walls of the castle. He's double the size of the walls. He is gigantic. So he goes in, gives the message to the Baratheon, who pretty much isn't accepting the answer. And nobody, the rules are in all of Game of Thrones, in books now, you were never to kill a messenger. You know, you don't lay your hands on them. And you don't kill kings. You don't want to be a kingslayer. But Aemond wants Luke to remove one of his eyes for payback for taking his eye. Everyone in this show holds a grudge for like decades. It's weird. But he's going to fight him, and the Baratheon says, not under my roof, and tells his guards, bring Prince Luke back to his dragon and let him get the hell out of here. So off he toddles. And as he runs out, there's a storm now. Some dragons that this show really kind of shows you and tells you is that a lot of them struggle and can't fly in the rain. So he runs out, sees that Vhagar is nowhere to be seen. You can't see Vhagar now. And he has to command his dragon, Arax. He has to tell him, look, you got to stay calm, you got to relax, you got to trust me and obey me and serve me. Let's go. They fly off. And the dragon is really struggling. I think it's the double ended of the rain, the storm, the wind, and Luke being on its back. That he's really struggling to fly. So he's flying. You hear another growl. He keeps looking around. Luke keeps looking around. Doesn't see anything. And then you get this spectacular shot. Has to be the shot of the season. You're looking from underneath up to the underbelly of Arax. And in the cloud above it, when the lightning is flashing, you just see the outline of Vhagar and the sheer size of this thing flying above him. And it starts to attack. So Aemond is trying to attack Luke, who's his cousin, by the way. And they are well, Arax and Luke are trying to dodge and run from this. Aemond is laughing the whole time. Arax and Luke go down low and go through a cavern that Vhagar is too large to go through. But Aemond keeps yelling like, you owe a debt, boy, because he wants the eye. The thing about this scene is, what you have to realise, a lot of people didn't realise and didn't notice this, but Aemond isn't actually trying to kill Luke because he knows what it would lead to. You know, that would be the declaration of war. But because Vhagar and him attacked Luke and Arax now is taking it upon itself to try and fight back, to defend itself, to try and run. So he comes out of nowhere breathing fire at Vhagar. And you hear Luke telling him, no, Arax, no. Now he's talking in Valyrian to the dragon and says, no, Arax, no, serve me. Serve me. And with that, Aemond loses control of Vhagar. And he starts panicking and telling Vhagar, no, serve me. Vhagar don't listen. Vhagar chases. Luke escapes. You think he's in the clear, and boom, Vhagar comes up from the side and chomps down, rips that dragon in half with like one bite. That's the end of Luke. I'm pretty sure I noticed Luke's body falling, where you see parts of the other dragon falling, Arax. I'm pretty sure I could see Luke's body fall. Either way, he's either been swallowed or he's fallen thousands of feet to his death. But Aemond immediately is looking on, oh shit, because he knows what's just happened. So this leads then to obviously what season 2 will be, which is it leads to the war, which is called the Dance of Dragons. So overall, was the show perfect? No. Was it very well done, entertaining? Absolutely. Would I recommend it? Absolutely. Would I say it fixes season 8 and 7 of Game of Thrones? No. It does bring you back with a bit of goodwill, but not a lot, because the problem is, even though this was great, looks great, acted superbly, everything, all roads lead to season 7 and 8. You know, it's like Star Wars at the moment, where no matter what they do, even with the likes of The Mandalorian, when that came out for the first time and it got a bit of goodwill, the problem you ran with was, okay, but it still leads to the Disney trilogy, still leads to The Force Awakens, and so on. So this would do the same. From what I understand, there's only meant to be 3 seasons of this. And I believe the waiting period between now and season 2 is 9 months. So it will come around a lot quicker than Rings of Power season 2, which is like 2 years away. It may be 3. It's not perfect. Some of the things that some of the cast and directors have come out and said kind of hurt this a bit. You know, like the end scene of episode 9, which was Aegon being crowned the king in front of everybody, and Princess Rhaenyra comes up through the floor and her dragon ends up killing like at least 500 people, commoners. Brings the dragon down in front of Aegon, Alicent, all the high towers and everything, and she has the chance to kill them, to end the war before it even begins, and doesn't do it. And why? Because they said it was a mother seeing another mother. You know, stuff like that. You're like, shut up. Especially when they kind of contradict it in the next episode. But there was just a few bits and pieces like that where you're just like, you just have to keep your mouth shut. But other than that, I would absolutely recommend it. Visually, the thing is stunning. Makes the Rings of Power, that was like 60 million an episode, an absolute joke. You'd really start asking, like, just that two shots in the very last episode were better than the entirety of what Amazon gave you with Rings of Power. And those shots were Vhagar outside the city when the lightning flashes and you just see the sheer size of him, and the shot of him above Arax. Just those alone. But the scenes where there wasn't even words spoken, and yet it spoke 1,000 words. A scene with the king, who Paddy Considine just absolutely nailed, steals the show. Him and Matt Smith are the two standouts, which is funny because it's meant to be the two girls, but these two steal the show. And there is a scene where the king he's dying basically, and he's walking down to sit the throne, and as he's walking upstairs, the crown falls off his head, and Damien picks up the crown and holds his arm and says, "Come on," and brings him up and sits him down. That entire moment wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't scripted. The crown wasn't supposed to fall off, but when it did, Matt Smith just improvised. I went over and picked it up. I went, come on, and set him down and put it back on his head. Like, wow. But yeah, absolutely recommend it. So finally something decent was on. And just the visuals, the story, everything. The first 2 episodes were very slow burn. You know, I was very much, if the third episode continues on this line, I might dip out. But thankfully it didn't. You know, they were still doing good story building and stuff. It was just very slow. But anyway, I would definitely recommend it. I'd give it probably a 7.5 out of 10. And with that, I'll leave it there for this one. Cheers. Catch you in the next one.